Everyone, and welcome to the Rutherford County Board of Education. The first order of business tonight, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're honored tonight to be led by Gavin White and Amit Patel of Stewart's Creek High School.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. If you would, audience, join the board in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. The board has already reviewed a number of items on tonight's agenda during the work session on Tuesday night, the first of which is the regular agenda. If there's no questions, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. A second?
Second.
I think that's Mr. Hodge. Thank you. Any comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
On number 5 is the approval of the consent agenda. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Holliday, thank you. A second?
Second.
Mr. Estes, thank you. Any comments? There are none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. If you're going over to page 4, I believe. Visitors, we have no visitors tonight, although we've got a large audience, and welcome to everyone. Our next order of business is, we might as well, I guess this will be the last time, but this is the night, every night where we get to honor Nick Boykin. This is our Nick Boykin night. and Nick is here, and Director, I know you want to introduce his coaches, and we want to say some great things about Nick.
Jason Baird is here tonight. Would you come up and I'll let you introduce Nick, although I think everybody's going to recognize him, which is a good thing.
Thank you for tonight and acknowledging Nick's accomplishments. Not only is he a fantastic athlete on the mat, but he's also a great person to be around. He's a great student. And so it's transitioned to him since he's been part of our wrestling program. Nick just completed his 3rd state championship. He went undefeated this year, and he had a total of 140 wins in a row that broke the original state record of 132 wins in a row. His 4-year record, 179 and 4. And those 4 losses came to 2 state champions. Those were back during his freshman year, along with 2 other matches, one in the region and also one during the regular season. Nick is also a 3-time Region 5 champion, and his freshman year he was the Region 5 runner-up in the championship. Nick is actually leaving tonight on an airplane to go to Colorado Springs. Driving. Flying would have been the good thing. But so they're driving out to Colorado so Nick can take part in training at the Olympic training facility. And in 2 days, he leaves to fly to Europe compete in the
Junior World Tour.
Junior World Tour. So, it's kind of hard to put into words kind of what he's done to prepare up to this point, both academically and athletically. For somebody that's worked hard, he does a lot of online classes right now. You see him walking around Riverdale with his laptop and sitting in corners or sitting in the office, and he's doing his math homework to make sure he's on track. And he's been very diligent on that. Mom and Dad's been really on him, and he's got Big Brother here tonight to help support him and help that transition smoothly. So, you want to say anything?
Thank you for having me today.
Well, tell us what's next.
I head to Europe Tuesday, come back, and then I'll be training for a world World Team Trials in May, and hopefully if I win that, I don't know where the Worlds would be at, but I'll be training for that until then. So I'll be living in Colorado Springs for probably about a year and a half or more just to train.
This is the Olympic
Yes, sir.
group is where you're training.
Yes, sir.
I think we haven't heard the last of Nick Boykin, I guess, probably.
Nick, congratulations.
Thank you.
So,
Board members, you can comment for Nick?
could you use him on your taekwondo team?
I would not want to get close to him. I don't feel like being a pretzel. But just an outstanding young man, and just not only is his school proud of him, but the entire county community takes great pride in his accomplishment. And thank you for being the man that you are, and we're grateful that you're one of ours. Thank you, sir.
Obviously, we had to push Nick up to the very front of the line. We have other state champions, and I won't go into them tonight, but we're going to be honoring in the coming weeks, and who knows, we may get basketball or softball, we don't know, coming down the line here. But kind of a special word about Nick, who, if I'm not mistaken, Nick, you started out at Christiana Middle. Isn't that right? Weren't you there for a while? And as we repeatedly tell people, but we don't get enough opportunity maybe to do it, the whole idea is to provide opportunities for young people, and that's what it's all about. And without the opportunity, this doesn't happen. And I know that this board joins me in congratulating you, and others to follow, and your brother who came before. That was a lot of fun too. I remember that. Okay, number 8 is Spotlight on Education. And Mr. Director, we've got two.
We got Stewart's Creek High School here tonight, I think, to talk about ACT instruction and intervention. Dr. Harrell, I'm going to let you step up, if you would, to kind of do some of the introductions. It's kind of interesting. One of the things I've picked up on, I want to thank you and your staff again. I was told last week, I guess, I was at Stewart's Creek Elementary, and they're using a software program to kind of monitor students' progress and help them go, called Mastery Connect. And the principal there mentioned that your people had come over to help them design some templates and some reports and things that they were getting out of Mastery Connect. But one of the things that's really interesting, is the culture there. I can go to the elementary school, or I can go to the middle school, or I can go to the high school, and I hear these people talk about, we're part of the creek. And that has kind of, for that whole area, everybody has kind of adopted that. So I think y'all have it going on. So, Dr. Harrell.
Well, thank you. And I would also like to congratulate Nick. Literally, I remember being at a state tournament watching some of my gentlemen a year ago, and it was so quick, I missed his action, but he won, of course. So tonight, our spotlight was, among other things, I hope it's known for brevity, but it certainly would be longer than his matches. I want to sincerely thank you for the chance to talk about and to share something that's important to the Creek students and the Creek parents. I'm also excited to be able to share and to celebrate with you the hard work that has been put in by our students when it comes to ACT. Tonight, what we're going to do in this presentation is I'm going to share a little bit about the background. Then we're going to have a video that will be shown where you can really get a sense from our students of the climate and what's going on. Then I'm going to have, as part of our leadership team, ACT has a seat at the table of our leadership team, and the one who is over ACT and works directly with me is Mr. Todd Harris. He will come up, briefly talk about some details of instruction and intervention, and then at the very end, I'm going to have 3 students that represent a lot, but especially tonight in this setting, I wanted to recognize them before the board. So the journey. Since the school was started, ACT has been a focus and part of our strategic plan. When we first looked at our students and received from our juniors who took the test in the fall of 2014, you receive a report back. When we got that report back in October, it was one that we looked and in dialoguing with our students, we realized something. We were implementing a lot of things. We took initiative and have from the beginning with college-ready, high-stake courses. We've been implementing and building that from AP to advanced honors. We have been adding, as we have known, extra English classes to take as elective, to get that one more class for increase. We have been adding in the history area. We've also been adding and pushing for calculus at a high level and the physics. So this is something on the journey we've been doing, but when those scores hit, it became for me in dialoguing with students, I started to realize they weren't satisfied with their score, and I knew we couldn't wait. So to be honest, something you would understand, Mr. Estes, being in the military, it was like a commander's call. So I called the leadership in, and it pretty much was a defining moment. It was a burn the bridge, and there's no provision for retreat. We're focused on these seniors and what can we do to get their scores up. What we did from that meeting was created something that in 6 weeks motivated students and led to a great ending. So let me share briefly. What happened was, when we met, we took a product we'd already been researching and had, and we started to use it to its full, capabilities. Analyze Ed, we knew was a product that you give an ACT-like test, but more importantly than that, they break down the results where it individualizes for online testing for students, as well as it breaks the cohort down where you from that cohort can key in on specific sub-areas of the ACT. So what we did was implement, imagine this, ACT boot camp that was 6 weeks. We amazingly, in a time where there was not free ACT testing and really the cost was from students, we motivated 62% of our senior class to take a test they would pay for in December of that year, December the 13th, I remember exactly. In those 6 weeks, implementing from the cohort exact instruction based on how the cohort divided up in all our areas, we also got into some literacy things and cutting edge that we help them to be able to get patterns and how to read and being comfortable. And the bottom line to a long story is this. That 63%, which ultimately in a small class of 267 ended up being an average increase on their ACT collectively of 2.14. That is amazing. It was so amazing that when you took that back into the overall cohort, there was a 0.9, almost 1 point increase in the overall cohort because of that one test and the ones we motivated that went through the boot camp. Since that time, we have implemented work sessions. I'm going to let Mr. Harris speak more about that. But a lot of creative things within our school, developing a culture where your first test does not define you, and where ultimately we're building layers of intervention and support, as well as a solid placement of students in high-ranking courses and taught at an excellent level. So what's happened is that same increase to this current year, 2016 cohort, it moved up 1.9 from the previous cohort. This is amazing. I can tell you, I don't know how to research it, but in the state of Tennessee, if you could really research a cohort's average from one year in a school to the next, you do not see 1.9 increases. And our last ACT composite was 20.5, which is amazing. It speaks to the hard work that students are willing to do and the hard work that we're putting into this. Also, may I tell you, in the fall, you get your first ACT report, and you have till what has been June to increase that But as of 2 days ago, they've added another test ACT has, and now there is a July test that they're going to offer. But with that cohort, you have that much time to increase scores. Our score at the beginning of this next year, this cohort that's going to come up on the report card, is 1 point under 20.5. We named our ACT classes ACT 21. I'm proud to say for the first time, and no one will meet that for this next year, we are renaming, and you'll be the first to hear it. Our classes will be called ACT 22. I also want to share this. In a dialogue with Mr. Odom, I remember very clearly we had a conversation about ACT prep, and it really made me think. It's not all it can be. We went back, and in that same commander's call mentality, we outlined a strong curriculum in the way we do our classes and pushing them to it that is something to celebrate. And I thank you for that challenge, and we took that, so thank you. I also want to make sure to share with you that at the previous school that I was at, a very strong school, by the way, I was over the data. And with ACT, I noticed, I went back to the very beginning of that school. And typically what you'll see is anywhere from a 0.2 to a 0.3 increase on a composite average, a whole cohort's average. The only exceptions to that would be when a state like Tennessee goes to testing everyone, or when we go to, and I say thank you, to not using your last ACT, but using your highest ACT. But besides that, increases beyond a 0.3 or a 0.4 are extraordinary. I'm very proud of our 1.9, and I'm very proud of what our next one will be. The good thing about ACT is there's no surprises. You know where you are, and you know what you're making. I want to share with you that it is exciting to me, and thank you, Mr. Odom, for referring to all of our schools in our community at the Creek. We are proud, and I'm glad in events like a social occasion when it's asked, well, what's Stewart's Creek High School known for? I'm glad that one of the first things that's said, if not the first in the top 3, is they are focused on ACT. And I'm proud of that. At this point, we're going into a video that has been made so we can work with our parents and our 8th grade students to be able to know this is a focus for us. I think it's important for parents coming in to know that. And also, it gives them hope, because when they listen to the stories of our students, and I wish and invite you to come, and we'll pull students in, and it will move you to hear their stories. But tonight, I'm glad that you'll get a chance to get a flavor of that tonight, of the hope of people not settling, of the first score not defining, and of students reaching their dreams.
I am ACT Strong.
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 I remember when I first took the ACT in April of junior year, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get a 21 or higher because that was my goal. And when I waited for the test results to come back, and I got it in the mail, so I opened it up, and I was like, Mom, okay, the test score is 21 or higher. I'm going to make it. I know I'm going to get 21 or higher. And I opened it up, and it was a 17. My face was really shocked. I was like, this is not me. A 17 is not me. I feel like I wasn't going to get into any of these colleges that I really wanted to go to.
The first time I ever took the ACT, I got a 17. Wasn't really satisfied with it, but I thought that's who I was. Coming in as a freshman, I was taking standard courses. Wasn't doing too well. Talked to my counselor about it. Was making C's and D's at that time and wasn't really happy with it. But then I progressed a little more. Talked to my counselor, and she said she thought I was capable of doing much more.
When I first took the ACT, I got a 23 and I was really depressed, so I kind of cried for like a couple days. And then I took it again and I made a 24. And then I just kept getting help, and I got ACT books, I got ACT practice tests online.
I took my first ACT in the spring of my junior year. I remember that date really, really well because it was on my birthday. But when I got my score back, it definitely wasn't the best birthday present ever. When I opened the letter, it was a 17. At that moment, it was mostly defeat. Like I didn't want it to define me as a person.
When I was in 8th grade, I took the Explore test, and it had said that the possible score range for me on the ACT was a 27 to a 32. So at that point, it was like, well, my goal was to make a 33. I took it in June and made a 31 on the test. It was a positive thing, but I knew I had some work to do on it.
So I was over at my friend's house. My mom her mindset when she called me, she said, Faith, I have a praise report for you. And I said, is it about the ACT, Mom? What is it? Did I make a 21 or higher? I was like, please tell me I made it for 21 or higher. Please, please tell me. And she's like, you made a 26. I ran, I dropped the phone, I ran, I shouted, I praised. It was amazing.
So studied more and took more ACT classes. My counselor motivated me, came down with me monthly and checked on my grades and said, this is what we need to do. We can improve from this. Took the ACT one last time and it came out to paying off being a 26. It really shocked me really hard because I've moved so forward from a 17 to a 26. It hit me really hard. It opened up much more doors for me for college. At a 17, I couldn't really get in. Now with a 26, I'm getting much more scholarship opportunities.
So in my last ACT, I got a 27, which was a dream for me because it opened me up to so many more doors for scholarships. It opened up 20 to 30 grand in scholarships for my school, which is $44,000 a year, so that was a huge blessing.
I logged in and I got my score back. And when I got my score, it was a 24. When I saw that, I immediately stopped and refreshed the page because I didn't believe it. I had to make sure my name was on it. I had to make sure that it was actually my score because I didn't believe one bit that I went up that much.
I went to a help session that was offered, and it really helped improve my techniques on the English reading and science sections. When I took the ACT the second time, I made a 33 on it. I was ecstatic. I was offered initially 2/3 of my tuition at Alabama, and now I've been offered full tuition. I was also able to apply for a full tuition scholarship at Tulane and be a competitive candidate for it. Getting the scholarship would mean that I received over $200,000 in scholarship money over my 4 years at Tulane. So here at Stewart's Creek, we have multiple ACT prep classes and multiple teachers who are always trying to help us do better on our tests because they know this is the test that gets us where we need to go. So we have teachers doing ICU workshops, we have teachers doing ACT prep classes with computer programs and practice tests all the time. And it's just, everybody's very encouraging and helpful in everything that we need.
There's this culture that their first score doesn't define you as a person. With my 17, I was only getting into one college, but I had people around me pushing back and forth. My best friend honestly said to me, you need to take it again, you need to do better. You can't let this one number keep you from the rest of your life.
I'm so glad that I'm at a school that my first score doesn't define who I am, because all the opportunities, the ACT workshops, the teachers encouraging me, the AP courses that I had, my counselor encouraged me to make that ACT score that I really, really wanted, and I achieved that.
At Stewart's Creek High School, we are ACT strong.
We are ACT strong.
ACT strong.
ACT strong.
ACT strong.
I got to tell you, these are peers of my son. I'm privileged to stand before you tonight. And guys, I'm going to tell you, I cried today when I saw that for the first time. And I'm right there again. to the board, I really want to extend my gratitude for the opportunity to share the heart of a dad. I'm privileged to work in Rutherford County, have been for the last 4 years. And I just want to give you a little bit of a perspective as a dad. And it goes like this, especially in regards to ACT testing and the scores. You see, my son, a senior, has scored an ACT score that's high enough that he has now earned over $60,000 at MTSU. At $60,000 his mom and I don't have to pay. This evening, I want to take you on a little bit of a journey, though, briefly. See, it began 4 years ago. My wife and I were in a place and a position in our lives where we were considering a move to Rutherford County, Murfreesboro area. And soon thereafter, after some thought and prayer and talking, things like that, it became obvious that our direction was going to change and we were headed this way. Well, then it became, as a dad, important to do the necessary research. Well, what kind of research, you would say? Well, research on behalf of my children. You know, it was time to do the due diligence to find out where do we want to land so that our kids can go to this school or that school. And you got to understand, we were leaving a community in the west side of St. Louis, Missouri that was very competitive academically. The local public high school, their average ACT score is 24.6. They've just been named this year the absolute top school in the state of Missouri. So that's the culture we were leaving behind. It was not strange to talk with other people in the neighborhood about, well, not only where's your kid going to school, what do you think they're going to get on ACT? And that was 7th grade. But it became very obvious to my wife and I very quickly that the place we wanted to be and where we wanted our children to be was Stewart's Creek High School. We wanted to be part of the Creek. We made that decision, and we bought in with everything we had. From day one, we've not been disappointed at all. We've been excited to say our kids are part of what's going on at the Creek. You see, my first year in Rutherford County, I was at another school, privileged to be there, but I got the perspective of secondhand information. And I got to hear from my son just how important he was as a student at Stewart's Creek High School. But it went beyond him. It was all of the students at Stewart's Creek High School, every student on campus. It was apparent that the vision, the plan at Stewart's Creek was intentional and it was on purpose in the area of academics and in ACT scoring. But you know, I was curious because it's a brand new school, and with my background, I had taught in 3 different states, both public and private. I stepped back for a moment and I observed and wanted to see just what they were going to do with that first year's group of seniors. But you know, the heart of Stewart's Creek was shown through as the administration, the faculty, they challenged that class to work harder, to finish strong. We ended up finding out later on ACT strong, and to do their absolute best. And in doing so, you got to understand that group, that first graduating class, they laid a foundation of excellence, which we're still realizing today. Now, my second year in the county, I was privileged and honored to be at the school that my children were at, Stewart's Creek High School. In doing so, though, I began to really fully realize and understand just how intentional of a master plan there was at Stewart's Creek in the area of academics and in ACT performance. You see, I've come to find out there's 3 tiers to that plan. You see, tier 1 goes like this. There's a commitment to providing a challenge academically, period. We're going to be challenging our kids. From day one, as a teacher on that campus, I have observed faculty, I've observed administration, I've observed counselors push, encourage, drive, do whatever they possibly can for those students to take an honors class, to take an advanced honors, an AP, to accomplish and not just recognize what their potential is. And as an educator, it becomes fun when you have a student come up to you and they say, Coach Harris, can I take honors next year? Just yesterday afternoon, 2 students from 2:30 on to the end of the day came up to me in my 7th period class. Coach Harris, we're doing scheduling. Can I take honors integrated math next year? They're in standard this year. It's happening. Remember, and this is something that's obvious when you're on our campus, this is intentional. It's intentional academic instruction to build that foundation through rigor, through challenge. Then there's tier 2. This is a concerted effort to focus on ACT and ACT performance, the successes, moving from what was to what can be. My first few weeks on campus, and Dr. Harrell's already alluded to this, but I kind of stood back in awe as I heard about these ACT boot camps, and I was like, okay, what is this going to be? How's it going to look? And I saw it do the continuation of what I observed the year before, which was, all right, we're going to value these students. We're going to do the best we possibly can as a faculty, and we have some faculty members here, thrilled to see them pause and do what they could to help these students make that next step, to do better, to accomplish, to see dreams fulfilled. Again, that concentrated effort was unprecedented in my experience in 3 different states. And because of that, we saw unprecedented gains. I knew that I was in the right place, but more important than me, I knew my kids, my personal children were in the right place. They were at the creek. You see, our intentional ACT instruction goes even so much deeper than that one boot camp. Our ACT 21 team of teachers, they use technology, organization, planning, meeting to push those students to greater achievement in ACT. Using resources such as Schmoop, our 3 computer labs, Pareto, and other things just like that, we are seeing scores put up that challenge our very vision and wisdom on where we're going to go with this. See, this year's class was deemed ACT 21. I am super excited to join in with Dr. Harrell and say that next year's class is going to be called ACT 22. And just today, when I shared that with the juniors, and I looked at them and I said, y'all, it's going to be ACT 22 next year, I started getting this right here. Started getting those nods. We're like, there's that buy-in. You see, ACT 22 is going to push students to achieve higher than even this year's. Again, I want to reiterate, it's about intentional instruction. Not shying away from the hard work that's necessary. We heard Bernice say it in the video. She knew she had work to do. Adhering to that master plan that's allowing us to hit success levels in only our 4th year in existence. And then there's phase 3, or tier 3, excuse me. This is where we have impacted a community, not just a school. See, we're using ACT workshops. We're using working lunches, working breakfasts. We're using the online helps that have already been referred to. And in doing that, we're opening eyes and minds to what a solid ACT score really can do. These resources provide that intentional intervention, if you will. It provides that net for maybe someone who, like Amit Patel, got a 17, but then was encouraged and then was motivated. You can do so much more. And we heard it, 17 to a 26. I heard someone say, wow. Yes, wow. And in that regard, I want to thank Dr. Harrell for the opportunity as he's directed me to lead our initiatives at Stewart's Creek in regards to ACT. But not only that, I want to thank him for selling out to me the vision for ACT and ACT success at Stewart's Creek. See, it's born as a dad. I'm buying in as part of the faculty and administration, but we're going to see more and more gains. Now, as I get ready to turn this back over to Dr. Harrell, I want to step back into that role of dad here real quick and be just a little bit personal. I love talking about my son, but you know what? I've got 2 daughters coming up. I've got one that's a sophomore. I've got one that's a 5th grader. They're part of that Creek culture. And I'm so excited to see what they're going to do in the area of ACT. The bar's been set by their brother. The sophomore, she's already said, I'm beating that. I'm going to take that down. And I know, without a shadow of doubt, that because of those 3 tiers, because of the rigor, the instruction, the challenge, all of those things, and her hard work, she's going to do that very thing. And as a dad, I stand before you, and I just want to admit, in no way, shape, or form would I rather have my children anywhere else than at the creek. Thank you.
It's one thing to talk the talk of post-secondary instruction and education that gets students somewhere. It's another thing to put in the hard work to make that happen. I celebrate our students and teachers, not only at Stewart's Creek High School, but in this county. In my position, I am privileged, and you've given me that honor, to be able to witness movements where teachers are making a difference, and I see that. I am also able to witness where lives are literally being changed because of a very important score and a vision for a future that we're not going to settle, and we're going to get them there. On a personal note, in thinking about events that affect generations, my mom was a longtime educator, and many of you in this room know her. When she was young, she was the oldest of 4. One morning when her dad left Gum Road, the shack they lived in on Gum Road, and went to the Coca-Cola bottling plant, tragically, there was an explosion and he died. The mom, who was home with the 4 kids, had to raise them, had to provide for them. She went and worked in the cafeteria at Buckhannon School. My mom, as a young girl in public education in Rutherford County, was inspired enough and supported enough by her teachers and those that would not let her settle, that she became someone in Rutherford County education that made a difference. And if I heard her say focus on students once, I've heard it 1,000 times, and that's a spirit that you know well. If it wasn't for public education in Rutherford County, if it wasn't for the support that my mom received at a critical time, I would not be standing before you today. That's what it's about. It's about making a difference. It's about being strategic about it. It's about rolling our sleeves up and the hard work together with our parents and our students. It's about achieving, and in that is excellence, and in that is something to be proud of as we think about Rutherford County and the public education that we serve to this county. Thank you for this chance to be here. If you'd be so gracious, I would like to recognize, since I have this chance from the video, I have 3 students that are here. If you'll come up right now, just stand right here, please. I want to formally recognize them in this setting. Bernice Levesque, Mitt Patel, and Gavin White. There's a recognition that I started. I'm blessed to be in the Air Force. I still am, and blessed to serve. The military coin is something that's presented in the Air Force. That has great meaning. One that was presented to me was during Enduring Freedom. I was getting back at Manassas Air Base and getting ready to ride back, and the wing commander comes out, and I'm like, what is going on? He came straight to me and with a handshake gave me one of his coins. I knew what it meant. I'll never forget it. In the same spirit, I have a coin for my highest recognition. And tonight, I'm glad in front of you and everyone here tonight to be able to give you this coin with a handshake and celebrate you, but also celebrate what you represent within your cohort at Stewart's Creek. Thank you.
Board, I know you have comments on this excellent presentation from the Creek.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate my fellow board members for allowing this presentation. I know it's a little longer than we typically have, but the impact is so profound. We're going to see a requirement for 95% testing of our class. We haven't seen that before in the state of Tennessee. It's been talked about, but it's going to be tracked, it's going to be mandated, and it's going to change the landscape. We know that the state of Tennessee is going to have that goal out there of a 21 average on the ACT. And once again, we are starting the process of saying in Rutherford County, we have a higher expectation. And we are so thankful for the recognition that has come to Central Magnet with the highest ACT scores in the state of Tennessee. I believe it's 29.1 average there at Central Magnet, the highest ACT average in the state of Tennessee. Those high expectations are what this presentation are about. Raising those expectations systematically and never being complacent, never being satisfied, and also recognizing exactly what the reward is. There's a $1.3 trillion debt in student loans in America. The things that we calculate in trillions are the national debt, credit card debt, and student loan debt. It is potentially a crisis. It is the next bailout that the federal government will be looking at, and we are intervening right now. Our CTE programs that give our students skills that allow them to earn a competitive wage directly out of high school, it's an outstanding effort to battle against student debt. In addition to that, maximizing our ACT prep and our ACT intervention and the possibilities for scholarships that it allows us, it is a critical element to improve our community and battle against this student loan debt.
I feel like I have a kindred spirit with these students. I also made 34 on the ACT, 17 the first time and 17 the second time. So, but seriously though, to see these the amazing improvement, and it just makes us proud as a board, and we're just so pleased. And congratulations for your success and your hard work. Thank you.
Any other board members with comment?
Growth in ACT 1 and 2/10 statistically significant. It's not easy to bring that number up. The commissioner released some information today in her virtual meeting for the whole state dealing with that. Said almost 26,000 students participated in the ACT Senior Retake Day. Tennessee added that this year, very significant, and these students benefited from that, where Tennessee paid for the rights to take that test again. Nearly 40% increased their overall score. More than 1,300 seniors now have access to Hope Scholarship, and instead of 2 years, it's 4 years, with the Hope Scholarship. Within the retake cohort, we saw more students meet all 4 college readiness benchmarks. She went on to say, generally students who had higher scores originally were the ones who retook the ACT, but the students who raised their score the most were those who scored below 21 initially. And this is a message as administrators and people we've got to get out there, that the ones that with this retake and with the work that's being done are gaining the most. And that's exactly what we saw in the case here. But it doesn't just happen. It has to be purposeful preparation.
I would be remiss, and Dr. Harrell would be on my case and emailing me. This weekend, the Oakland girls and boys and the Riverdale girls and boys, the Smyrna girls and the Blackman boys will all play in the region tournament at one time or another. And the rumor has it that Stewart's Creek girls and boys will also be playing. Is that right? And they will host a game on tomorrow night, 7 o'clock versus Coffee County. There are other, like I said, there are other games. The boys play Saturday. Mr. Harrell, thank you so very much. Students and the dad, thanks to all of you. We appreciate it very much. You're welcome here anytime. Okay, let's move on here with, we have a calendar change, Mr. Director.
This is proposed Rutherford County Schools 2017-18 academic calendar change. And the change is for the date of May 1st, 2018. And as I said last evening, this is because there's an election in our schools, and we didn't catch it in the calendar committee. So it's again to let students be off that day that we have election. To recommend approval, the motion is to approve the Rutherford County Schools 2017-18 academic calendar as presented.
Blair's moved. I believe that was Mr. Holliday. A second. Any comment or discussion on the calendar change? I wouldn't think there would be any, but if there is something, we'd say so now. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, there is none. Moving on to number 10. And again, just reminding the audience, both TV and present, that the board has discussed many of these items at length on Tuesday night, including this next one, Mr. Director.
After our meeting Tuesday night, I think we decided that the next phase of what we'll present or seek funding for through the Rutherford County Commission, these were the ones that you selected the other evening. I think they're good choices. Recommend approval of the motion to forward the following to the next Health and Education Subcommittee for the Commission funding approval process. First is Oakland Middle School Annex to open in 2018 for a cost of $13,472,200. The Siegel High School addition to open in 2018 for a cost of $6,060,000. Design fees for Laverne Middle School addition of $350,000, and design fee for Roy Waldron Elementary School of $350,000. This brings the total request to be forwarded to $20,232,200.
Comment, board members.
I'll move for approval.
Second, Mr. Estes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Holliday. I think that will be presented. Health and Ed, the date's not on here, but I believe it's the 28th. Isn't that correct? Mr. Sandvik is nodding yes. So that's the last day of the month. That's next Tuesday.
Jordan.
Yes, sir.
I am pleased to say that just today I was contacted by the city administration in Laverne, and they have requested a meeting with the director of schools and myself and a few other key central office personnel. And it seems that the intent of this is for responsible growth planning. Recently in Laverne, they had the opportunity to consider a zoning request that would have increased the capacity of 24 acres from some level of 78 homes or something of that nature to 300 townhomes. And very wisely, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen chose not to rezone for that purpose. This land was immediately adjacent to Laverne Middle, and it was a good decision on the part of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And as in the wake of that, they very correctly requested this meeting to understand even better the capacity of the schools and improve their perspective on land use planning. I share that with my fellow board members because sunshine law may prevent us to collectively have that meeting, but I'll certainly report back. And as you interact with other municipalities that are close to you, I'd encourage the board to be receptive to sharing that kind of good, responsible land planning so that our schools grow appropriately.
Any other comments on this recommendation? I think it does in general strongly reflects that it's our job, and many of you have made this comment, that it's our job as school board members, as a director, as a staff, to recommend to the county commission, after considerable thought and discussion, what we need. That's our job. And I think this is a start, and we all know, everybody in this room knows that there'll be another one somewhere down the line. We're growing so very, very rapidly, but I don't want to get too far away from this recommendation. Anything else on the recommendation? All in favor? Well, I need a motion. I'm sorry. Did I get a motion? I got a motion. Okay, I'm in good shape there. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. Thank you. Director will be in front of the Health and Ed along with others on the 28th. Next Tuesday to present that. It's insurance time, and it's Mr. Sandvig's time to shine. He gets extra money when he's on camera.
Okay. I gave y'all the little update that we do. Last month's showed the plan year, which is the calendar year. We just finished a calendar year. This month, I changed it to show our fiscal year to date. Now, if you look in the rightmost column of numbers, that deficit looks horrible. I could make the case for looking at a period August through July for us, because the Board of Ed, employees and the Board of Ed, we prepay our July and August medical insurance premiums. We pay September through June. We pay 12/10 each month. So when the fiscal year ends, they don't have any more revenue coming into this fund for us for 2 months. And then our revenue's picked up. That's why the deficit numbers look so bad. Now, they are not good. But in the rest of this fiscal year, we should see those numbers improving. And the middle column of numbers that has 996.31, we actually, in the first 7 months of the year, have a slight drop in our per employee per month cost of the insurance. And then down below, I've got our on-the-job injury, our self-insured claims. We're up a little bit. That number varies. But that number, we do a review, have a consultant do a review each year and get an estimate of what we are saving having our on-the-job injury as opposed to a traditional workers' comp program. And there still is a substantial savings from that number. Then, for your reading pleasure, if you are so inclined, we got basically an update of the previous 2 fiscal years' claims with costs that have been paid out through the middle of October or through October of the year. Some of our claims linger on for a while. Most of them are settled within 60 to 90 days. There is probably more information in that. It's a great presentation, but I doubt y'all want me to go over it.
Questions for Mr. Sandvig?
I have one question, Chairman.
John.
Why do we pay in advance on health insurance?
Well, we have a lot of employees who are 9 and 10-month employees who would not work, would not have checks coming in July and August. Okay. That is different than it was even 20 years ago. A lot more of our teachers, the vast majority of our teachers now opt for, they are on their, we have a payroll that pays them an equal amount, if they work the full contract, an equal amount in July and August. We divide their pay over 12 months. But back 20 years ago, most of the people were paid by us over a 10-month period. That is something we have talked about possibly moving toward a change. It would complicate the re-enrollment process. That is a downside to it.
I just wonder if there's some kind of benefit if we could get our premiums reduced a little bit by paying in advance like that.
And I sat at home one night and worked through the algebra on it. Actually, there is an argument, a legitimate argument that I can demonstrate with algebra if anyone wants me to. We do have a slight discount when there is a rate increase, which the insurance department doesn't care for.
Well, it's to our favor. I'm good with it.
That's why they don't want it to stay that way. But we are more than 70% of the insured individuals in this plan. We are the over 2/3 majority. Not quite 3/4, but.
of this total, what percentage of the outlay is pharmacy? You know? I was trying to look through this and see if I could tell.
I don't remember which page, but
Is it 8?
yeah, it's shown, page 8, and I don't remember if he said something more than that. We talked a lot about prescriptions and then catastrophic spends.
Well, I don't have to know tonight, but I'd like to know that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll get back to y'all on that. I'm afraid I'd misstate.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Sandvik? Move on to the director's update. If you have anything additional, Mr.
A couple of things. Mr. Clardy is, on the State's Board for Energy Efficient School Initiative, and he's been meeting down there all day. They're having the meeting, so I did tell him this evening, just, why don't you stay down there and not try to come out to Nashville at the time you'll be coming out to Rutherford County, because you might not get here on time. But again, some possibilities again for some funding for us maybe on this energy efficient. People listening to us on TV or YouTube, what we saved a little over $900,000 last year for energy efficiency, right, Mr. Sandvik, wasn't it? It's a little over 900.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So people are paying attention to that. The other document that I have for you is Mike Snell and myself are serving on a state committee that's looking at buses. It's House Bill 322 by Hawk and Senate Bill 1210 by Norris. This bill does not have anything to do with seat belts, but it was drafted by the Department of Education and the Department of Safety jointly. So this one is a bill being sponsored by administration. And just to point out 2 or 3 things, I'm not going to read it to you, you can read it. I noticed this applies to both charter schools and regular schools, so I'm glad to see that they've included in that. But one of the big things that's following up on this one, I guess, is there's a couple of things. We'll be tracking bus complaints, and Channel 4 has been running one on that. I think we had 2 complaints, didn't we? And we was hearing others had 150 and all sorts of numbers of complaints. But one of the provisions of this bill is that on the back of every school bus, we'll have to put a sticker that'll say, the trucks that have "How's my driving?" call so-and-so. That the districts are probably going to have to put their transportation office sticker on there for people to turn in complaints. That'll have to be tracked. The process of how that's done is there, and it tells you in here. I think the other things, we actually do most of the other things through some of the smaller districts. This bill will require even smaller districts to name someone as the transportation supervisor. That's not an issue for us, but you have the small district in Tennessee may not even have that in place. But if I had to guess, I would say there's a very high probability that this bill, either in this form or something very close to it, is going to pass, since it's 2 state departments that are sponsoring it, and it does tend to address some of the things that have gone on with bus safety this school year. So look that one over, if you would.
Okay.
And this may be another unfunded mandate too, by the way, so I'll just throw that out.
Any questions for the director? Okay, let's move on to number 13, Tennessee Legislative Network. Ms. Moore, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, a few things actually. It was a pretty big week, at least for us as a school board and district, because the TSBA, Tennessee School Board Association, hosted a legislative session up in Nashville on Tuesday, and so got kind of a summary that I'd like to go over. All the board members have a copy of this in their packet. The TSBA did review all of these bills. There have actually been a total of 182 total education bills that have been filed and also that have been vetted by the TSBA. There's 32 caption bills, which of course these are the bills that really get filed that are just basically there to hold a place for something to come later so they don't miss the deadline, I guess. We're seeing a lot of things in here that I think we definitely expected. There are 6 different bills that have been put in that address vouchers, and then also one regarding charter schools. There are a couple of bills that have been presented that discuss the whole issue that's been going on, or the debate about elected versus hired school superintendents. There were also several bills that have been filed about handguns and firearms in the schools as well. So, and again, all of the details of these are on here. One of the things that I was pleased to see too, because I know it's been a concern for a lot of school districts, and that is the ratio of nurses that we have for students. Right now, the requirement is 1 school nurse for every 3,000 students. There has been a bill put in that would change that to 1 for every 750 students. So I'm not sure, and Mr. Odom, you might be able to speak to this, whether or not that's going to be a funded mandate or not. That's a big increase in nurses, but I know we already have much better coverage than a lot of the districts. So
that's again, it comes to the BEP formula. You know, I was reading this week, to give you another example of it. They're about to reduce the English language learner teacher ratio from 40 to 35. For Rutherford County, that would be 13 new positions, basically. So I'd be interested to see if the thing says no physical impact. But anyway, it's 13 for us, which you're looking at $750,000 basically. And I noticed in the BEP formula that the state's funding for that's about $44,000 per position. Time we fill the nurse, do the fringe benefits and all, you approach the 60,000 mark. So again, that's another case where their numbers and actual numbers for school districts do not match. Some of the same, I think, what you're talking about there with
Mr. Sandy?
Just that is one of my, it's not a huge number but when we're looking at BEP discrepancies, the BEP formula generates 14.58 nurses for Rutherford County. Yeah.
And we have how many now?
We have more than that.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Sarah and all, yeah. Yeah, and we have subs, we have nurses that we have to provide with athletic and all that. Mid-40s or upper 40s.
Ms. Moore?
yeah, there's one other that I wanted to mention, and I had mentioned this bill the last time that I gave a report, and it's interesting, I think, that it's still there, and I'd like to do a little more investigating as to why it's there. But there's been a bill that's been presented by Gresham regarding election laws that would require that all school board elections now be partisan elections as opposed to nonpartisan. So I thought that was interesting. I'm going to follow that one closely.
Any questions for Ms. Moore? Mr. Holliday, number 14, Federal Relation Network.
This week, the Trump administration has rescinded some of the guidance that has come from the Department of Education in the past. It is an indication of a commitment to local control, and as we stated from the visit that we made to Washington not long ago, it is incumbent upon us to be bold in taking hold of the local control that is being offered to us, and for us to lead the way. Not wait for someone else to suggest what we should do, but to be innovative and original in our solutions for education, for public education, and inspire the future.
Questions, Mr. Holliday? General discussion, board members, any subject, any topic? Mr. Young.
I was hoping we could get into discussing our property tonight, but I understand why Mr. Hardy's not here. Did he leave any information on our inventory?
I don't think he did leave it with me. but we'll get that to you. I'll get him.
Because I think we still need to focus on that issue too, as far as seeing where we are on property, because we can't build schools when we don't have property.
Yes. If I'm reading the report properly, 26.9% for pharmaceutical.
I want to thank the administrations of Oakland Middle School and Laverne Middle School for their support and interest this evening as we've approved projects, at least from our perspective, that will impact their campuses. And we certainly appreciate your interest and commitment to be here this evening and support the board and give us your input.
Looking down the line just a little bit reminded me to just kind of report back to you, I guess. The bus contract is, the process is underway. And we have met with the drivers, their representatives, earlier this week. It went very well, I think. I appreciate Ms. McLeod and Mr. Snell and Mr. Reed educating me on and contracts and so forth. It's been very interesting, and I think it's fair to say that the first meeting went well, and we meet again next Tuesday. So I have great hope that we will be able to come up with a 4-year contract that will be pleasing to you and to obviously to the drivers as well. Anything else on general discussion? If not, appreciate the visitors in the audience. I think we will adjourn at this time. Thank you.